Hey everybody, Jamie Star here. Today we're going to talk about some pop culture stuff and the Marvel MCU Falcon and Winter Soldier series. And I've seen a lot of people on the sort of YouTube MCU comic book media people in that genre saying they're disappointed with um Falcon and Winter Soldier. So let me first address this disappointment problem because there is a disappointment problem that's just absurd and it's not the disappointment that I want to talk about. Um so the first problem that we are running into is comic book fans not understanding what the MCU is doing, not understanding the business at this point. There was an article. First off, let me just say Clownfish TV is definitely a good channel if this is stuff you're interested in. They are very much focused on the business side of things. And I'm going to reference a handful of videos they've done. And also, Den of Nerds is really good. Those are the two that I think are most on point. So, as Clownfish TV has pointed out in one of their videos, comic books nowadays are essentially looked at as pilots for TV shows. A lot of these smaller publishers and the sort of offshoot brands are just putting out books now to try to get them turned into a Netflix series. There's been a handful of them that I was completely unaware of, that you've never heard of the books, you didn't even hear of the series, and it's just here and gone before you could even know. So there's that problem. And because of that we're making comic books to be turned into movies for normies. What you have in this genre of comic media YouTube area fans and people like myself, except I know what the deal is, so I'm not working myself up for disappointment. And it happened with WandaVision, where is it Mephisto? Is the multiverse X-Men Professor Xavier gonna pop up at the end? And this wild speculation that if you were making comic book movies for comic book fans would make sense. People are having a similar issue right now with the idea that Emily Vanderkamp is um the power broker. But did you really think, as soon as you saw Julia Dreyfus come in as Val, you should have known the power broker was going to be a not a big reveal, because that was their big reveal. And even her, they had her come in a manner that, sort of gave a little bit of backstory to her, where she's, alluding to, well, did I do this? Did I set it up? It was a good plan. Was it my plan? I don't know. So that leads to speculation. But the idea that the power broker was going to be Ross, or one of these, or some character, like, here's the problem is, these people, because they're familiar with the comic book material, keep expecting them to pluck a character from the comics and insert them in as some sort of large fan service, and it keeps not happening. People keep getting disappointed. Like, we heard Omega Red might be in the show, Wolverine might be in the show. And let me just say, don't think we don't realize what's going on here. Marvel loves this fucking endless stupid speculation shit, because it builds hype. So they're going to feed into it. I mean, look how Paul Bettany played you guys. Oh, an actor I've dreamed of working with. Yeah, it was himself. But imagine all the clicks. Imagine all of the, like, I think of it like this. I heard a wrestling YouTuber talk about how he enjoys WrestleMania being broken up over 2 nights because it allows him to make more content, more media, more clicks, more money. So, this endless speculation stuff is good on the business side of things. It can't sustain itself, though, when it's continually met with disappointment. And now I'm going to get into the actual disappointments, and it ties into this diversity issue, because I think we see that Marvel is going into the all new Marvel or whatever. And it again, it makes sense with the idea that these comic books are simply pilots for movies and TV, because the comic book characters that they're talking about introducing now are not popular. I mean, Captain Marvel is a great example. How many times has she been relaunched? Like 12 or more? I mean, they can't even get 12 or more issues into a relaunch without being like, this is a dumpster fire. We need to try rebooting it again. And it's just and you know, now it's American Chavez or whatever, Miss Marvel. So I mean, these Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, and Doctor Strange. I look at Doctor Strange as the swan song. After Doctor Strange, I'm done. I just don't. You don't have anything coming out that I'm interested in. I'll probably watch it when I need time to kill, but I'm gonna look at it like I watch Law and Order, where it's like, okay, I can pick it up. I know what's going on. I don't need to be too invested, because what's coming? She-Hulk, Moon Knight might be cool. Fantastic Four might be cool, but I look at how Fantastic Four was rebooted last time. I'm more interested in what Sony's doing with Venom and Morbius and all that. But anyway, let's talk about the real reason why Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a disappointment. And now, Clownfish TV also put out a video where they referenced an article where you had a top executive at Disney come out and say, we've received some really good scripts, but they weren't diverse enough. We didn't think it was enough that the diversity would be brought in by the neighbor or something like that, so we didn't go for the script. So this shows you where their priorities are. They will... The diversity is up in higher priority than good script. There's a way to do both. But the problem with it is that I don't think, when they say diversity, I don't think they mean diversity. I think they mean messaging. Messaging, propaganda. So let's start first with Monica Rambeau, because she was an example of the very problem I'm about to talk about. She was essentially shoehorned into WandaVision and introduced. The actress that played her, wonderful job. You'll not hear any complaints from me about her as a character, but there wasn't much done with character development. She lost her mom. She just went right back to work. If there was a battle, she was diving right into it. And you can see what she's doing. She's trying to run from her grieving by really, delving into this problem. And there's sort of that, well, if she can save Wanda, she feels like she can save herself. There's the one scene where she confronts Wanda and she's like, this is my truth. I'm tired of running from it. But that's the problem, is that the core aspects of like true character development that could be done with these diversity characters, because I mean, let's just say, not that these characters don't deserve screen time or predominant roles, but my point being, they're given them for the wrong reason, and then they're underdeveloped and underutilized. See, I would actually like to see Monica Rambeau's story explored more on a deeper level, not just where you get the nutshell of her purpose being there in a 3-line spat with Wanda. You know, even her, when she gets these powers, it's almost just like, that was cool. Let me just keep on going. Like, it's not even like she's just looking around and like, oh, okay, I can see spectrums of things. And I mean, it's just all very there. Like, she's just there. She's just a badass. She's just, her mom just died. It's none of it's really explored. She is a headstrong, takes no bullshit badass from the start. She is a headstrong, takes no bullshit badass at the end, with no real breaks or changes in between. There's no real arc for her. She is just there doing her thing. Okay. So now we get to Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And this is supposed to be the story about Falcon becoming Captain America. And we should have known, really, that this was going to be a sort of convoluted mess of things that was supposed to explore more of the world post-Infinity War, the stance of the governments, and such. So, it's kind of all unnecessary. Like, we should have known going into this that the story is all more about the backdrop and the scenery than the character, because with Falcon, they almost take his arc and put it around him, and then he's just there being himself through the whole, like, it's kind of hard to explain. Den of Nerds, which is why I shouted him out before, he mentioned in one of his videos covering one of the episodes that the real similarity between Steve Rogers, the original Captain America, and Falcon is the empathy. It's his heart. It's not the super soldier serum. It's not the warrior, ready for battle. It's the empathy. It's the sympathy. It's the heart. And again, similar to Monica Rambeau, that aspect is alluded to. I wouldn't even say it's handled in a direct way, because it's very, in the scene where they're outside before he goes to talk to Carly and everything, that they were speaking of it. Oh, well, this is his thing. He deals with soldiers and all that. But what they did here instead, because I don't know if it was the writer, the producer, or the showrunner, but there were articles about this where basically two of the guys working on the show came across the Isaiah Bradley comic, a comic that didn't do well. But we see the character has ended up shoehorned in a movie with a different story and everything like that, where they just take this vague concept of Black Captain America. So instead of the story being about Sam, like, in some ways, the Shield has more of a character arc than Sam does here. It turns into this story of America and black people, and how black people are treated by the government, and how they're viewed by America. And if you see any of my other stuff, I fucking hate this personification of America, like a country as if it can have attributes. Like, I mean, saying America is racist is like saying America is tall or short. It's insane. So Isaiah Bradley doesn't need to be there. They took all the character development, and that could be an internal struggle within Falcon, and externalized it. Instead of Falcon dealing with insecurity of, Steve Rogers was a super soldier. He fought the Nazis. Will I ever be as good as Captain America? Well, they gave that to John Walker. John Walker got that arc. And, now he's U.S. agent, whatever, and all of that. Bucky, you see, dealing with the Sam tells him, you're avenging people. You're not, giving people closure. That's the phrase I was looking for. And so again, you see Sam utilizing this skill set, but where it could have had the ultimate payoff with Carly, it didn't. There's the, I'm not going to fight you, this and that, but ultimately, the reason Sam was chosen to be Captain America was not utilized in the grand finale, and I mean, it just wasn't there. It wasn't addressed, and that's my disappointment with this. Is there was a great story that was personal to Sam, that had the universal relatability. You know, like I mentioned when I posted about this online, and I've said this in other videos, when I play fighting games, I generally pick the female characters because I've always been tall, lanky, skinny, fast, agile. Female fighting characters in fighting games are faster, quicker, agile, and so on. They're not muscular, they're not brooding. I'm not muscular, I'm not brooding. I'm not identifying with the character based on their genitalia. I'm identifying with them based on these characteristics that are not based on immutable factors. So that's the whole diversity issue, is that it's not, Sam's empathy, being empathetic, being caring, being able to see the good in people when it seems like all hope is lost, that's not a racial thing. So the core aspect to Sam is overlooked for this storyline and this aspect where, I mean, if the US government handed the shield to Rhodey and said, well, now you're a war machine with a Captain America shield, he could have gone through the same exact story. It's not the story of Sam the Falcon becoming Captain America. It's the story of black man becoming Captain America. And that's where the real disservice is to these characters, is that the diversity component, the racial component, the sexual, I mean, at this rate, they're talking about adding an LGBTQ character into, what is it? Not Inhumans, into, I'm thinking Mortal Kombat, I'm about to say Elder Gods, you know what I'm talking about, though. It's with the giant titans, and it's related to Guardians of the Galaxy, but they're saying they're going to add a Eternals. Eternals. I mean, you might have a blowjob scene in Eternals just to really drive home the gay factor at this rate. Like, that's how cheap and superficial it is. And, the Isaiah Bradley character, yeah, he's there, but he wasn't handled well. Because it was all messaging. It was all this sort of, well, you black man like me, and you're a black man too, and you've been black since I've been black, and can't you see the black and the red, white, and blue black? And it's like, come on. Like, these things are just interchangeable. They aren't even, like, intimate to the character themselves. They are generic and superficial and irrelevant to the situation at hand, because these people are just concerned with broader social messaging. I mean, I heard Overlord DVD channel said that rumors are within Disney that at the scene after they leave Isaiah Bradley's house, where the police come out and they're basically like, hey, Winter Soldier, do you need us to shoot this loudmouth black man for you? Like, and they're like, oh no, do you know who this is? It's the Falcon. Like, everyone tuned off at that point. I mean, my significant other wanted to turn it off at that point because they were just sick of it. We watched this stuff to get away from this messaging, from this propaganda. And that's all it is. And then you have the industry insiders that just, like, trained SEALs applaud it. But it's all just puff pieces because they're probably all owned by the same parent company. But again, just to reiterate the point, there was a very Sam-focused story that could have been told. And you saw aspects of it in Walker's story. Not saying you couldn't have even made a commentary on, well, will the world accept a black Captain America? And here's the fucking truth. The reality is, it would. I mean, most people look at Michael Jackson becoming whiter in appearance as some fucking freak show act. He was beloved when he was black, and then people sort of looked at him like he was crazy when he turned white. So, in the world where Falcon and Winter Soldier take place, we're supposed to think like, Michael Jackson wasn't accepted, or that Caitlyn Jenner wasn't called brave and beautiful and all of this other shit. Like, we're continually like placed into a false reality that we're supposed to believe is reality, but it's another false reality. Like, it's really like Inception or something. It's like none of it is like reflects the actual world, and it's all really stupid, especially when you're doing a disservice to the characters you have in exchange for trying to make a commentary on the actual world that doesn't even reflect the actual world, which I guess is why it's propaganda, because it's just supposed to convince you things aren't as they are. So I really I don't know what else to say, but that's the real disappointing thing here, is that they could have done so much more with Falcon. He could have been handled so much better. He didn't have a character arc. Like, he's the same Falcon he was going into it as he was at the end of it, just in a different costume. So they gave him a wardrobe change, and other than that, he's the same person he was. Like, okay, here's a good point. Glad I remembered this. This whole Isaiah Bradley story, right? That everyone was so into. Oh, Isaiah Bradley, are we going to see flashbacks? You know, but there was black superheroes and the government didn't recognize them, and oh, it's such a sad, sad thing. And it's again this, like, he's brought in for no reason to tell this backstory, as if War Machine isn't a part of the government, as if Falcon wasn't part of the government, as if, you know, Vision, a fucking cybertronic android, like, as if he isn't a thing, and as if we're still in the fucking 1950s, and we do this whole heart-wrenching, oh, they experimented on me, and this and that, and then Sam's sister just goes, you gonna let that bitter old man Isaiah get all up in your head? And he's like, nah. And there goes that. There goes that. Just built up all this, oh, well, the black struggle of this and, old man Bradley, you gonna let him get you down? Done. Done and over. I mean, it was just the whole thing blown out by a one-liner. And then similar thing, you know, the struggle with the bank, I thought that was very relatable. You know, it gave him that bridge with Carly and such. And then, you know, if you've ever seen pitch meetings videos where they talk about these movies and all the sort of inconsistencies and stuff, and they have that catchline, super easy, barely an inconvenience. Oh, well, how'd you solve the problem with the bank and everything like that? Super easy, barely an inconvenience. You remembered you had friends and family that don't have superpowers, and you made some phone calls, and suddenly the whole town shows up to fix your boat. I mean, that's the part where you just wonder, what are you doing? There's all of this superhero shit. It's very anticlimactic. It's just, I mean, I guess it's how they say Michael Bay movies are, where it's just like explosions, special effects, even that end scene, like this fucking helicopter shit. The last episode, I waited till the last episode came out to do this video, and I'm very disappointed that the last episode didn't alter anything I wanted to say. It just really sealed the deal. That there was just nothing at the end of it but more disappointment. So yeah, that's how I feel about it, and I really hope Marvel changes course. I really wish they stopped looking at it as, well, Falcon is their black Captain America, and, you know, he just is Captain America who happens to be black because Captain America is now Sam Wilson or whatever. Like, that's how you have to handle these people. You can't think, like I say this all the time, like, being black is not a plot. It's not the theme of the story. It's just a character attribute. There are aspects you can explore with it. You know, sure, the history with Isaiah probably would have been better if there were flashback scenes. Probably would have been, because here's the thing is, had they done flashback scenes showing him in the garb he wears in the comic books, which is similarly styled to Captain America, well, then now you've built up the idea that there was a black Captain America, and the government didn't love him the way they loved Steve Rogers. But it was, if you're not showing him in the red, white, and blue, the stars and stripes, then it's not. And even at the end, they had a chance to do that when they had the statue of him, and they just have him looking like any old soldier. So yeah, that's my take on that. And again, for the morons out there that don't get what I'm saying, it's not that I'm saying having these diverse characters in their shows is the problem. The problem is that they're thinking the diversity is such a big component to the character that they're not utilizing any other component. That there's really there's the ground, and maybe it's a problem with Marvel using different writers and directors for everything, but it's also the problem of the directors having stories that they want to tell regardless of who their characters are, and then just using these characters to tell the story that they already want to tell. And Marvel granting them permission to pull from here or there and rewrite and recreate and do whatever just for the sake of their social messaging. So yeah, these characters could be really amazing. There's the groundwork there for them to be really amazing. It's like they have just a clear lane to the winning shot, and they just decide no. And part of it is, we hear this about the representation, the seeing yourselves, and this and that. Well, that's just academic, intellectual words for narcissism. And that's what a lot of it is. And this is more apparent in the comics more than anything else, because you see them, like, there's a new X-Men comic coming out, and you can basically see that the chick who was writing it self-cast herself as Gambit. Because Gambit, instead of being like French and Cajun, now he's a black chick with an afro. That's what it is. That's what this whole representation thing is that it's actually a cover for narcissists to make stories about themselves without being biographical or anything else. It's basically like you'd have someone come in and be like, well, I'm a trans lesbian whatever, so why don't I make a trans lesbian Spider-Man? Because representation. Because I need to be represented. I mean, it's the grift. It's all this representation grift really is it's acting as if you're doing it on behalf of others, and really you're just inserting yourself into everything because you want to see yourself in everything because you're a narcissist. So that's my take on that, because here's the thing is, in the fictional world of the MCU, this whole is the world ready for a black Captain America story wasn't there. There wasn't the underlying story to be told about that. That's why they had to bring in Isaiah Bradley. They had to create, essentially, Bucky introduced this conflict to Sam. Sam was already gave away the shield before he ever met Isaiah Bradley. So this whole storyline with Isaiah Bradley is brought in there strictly because the people working on the show wanted to do this whole America bad, America racist thing, rather than doing a story about Sam dealing with coming into being Captain America. So, anyway, I've probably gone too long, probably made a couple points 2 or 3 times, but that's all I have to say about that, and I really hope Marvel do better. Do better, okay? Do better. Follow me on social media, Jamie Star Music. I have a new album coming out. It's going to be really special. I have some great plans for that. And yeah, take care, everyone.